This place is great, really comfortable. Time to move on. Get on with my life. Yes, absolutely. Definitely more my style than Panama. Or Hoboken, I guess. No, if I'm honest, I just got kind of bored of boozing. I mean, once in a while, but not all the time. Maybe I'd lost my self-respect, but it's back. I'm excited, really. I really needed a new start. Listen, if you think I can still do a job, what have I got to lose? Apart from the weight. Very funny, ha ha. Yes, that is a fake laugh, you jerk. So I guess I've become what they wanted me to be. A killer. Some rent-a-clown with a gun who puts holes in other bad guys. Well, that's what they had paid for, so in the end, that's what they got. Say what you want about Americans, but we understand capitalism. You buy yourself a product and you get what you pay for. And these chumps had paid for some angry gringo without the sensibilities to know right from wrong. Here I was, about to execute this poor bastard like some dime store angel of death. And I realized they were correct. I wouldn't know right from wrong if one of them was helping the poor and the other was banging my sister. And what kind of town was this? One where I didn't speak the language and they didn't water down their drinks. So for now, we seemed to get along just fine. Of course, that was about to change.
Cocktail.
Scotch. I never mix my drinks.
Well, at least not on duty. That favela is big.
Yep. Nothing like the view of extreme poverty to make a penthouse cocktail party really swing.
I guess they call it trickle-down economics.
That's funny. Always something rotten in the air. The family we were protecting were local celebrities, rich parasites with delusions of humanity. The kind of people who end up in glossy magazines or body bags, depending on how their luck runs.
Cool.
Guess that's what a European education and a coke habit will do for Ricky Martin look-alike. The trophies he had won was his wife, Fabiana. She was hot and wanted to be dangerous. Some good genes trying to fight their way out of a cesspit. She'd married well and was now at leisure to regret her good fortune. They got along as well as any rich workaholic and his younger airhead wife tend to get along. They mostly ignored each other. She spent a lot of time with his cokehead younger brother, Marcello. He was a good-time guy if your idea of a good time was an expensive suit, a bottle of champagne, and nothing between the ears. The middle brother, Victor, had just walked in. He was a local politician. Guy was smoother than an oil slick on an iceberg and about as toxic. The rest of the crowd, I didn't know, but I could imagine the types. People who know if they drink enough, they won't have to feel guilty about their good fortune. Suddenly, things turned real ugly. Felt like our hangovers arrived right on cue.
I don't know what the fuck that was. Let's go.
Things had gone from fine to fucked up in about a second, and now there were two idiots at the wheel. Safety I was concerned about, trophy wife or not. I'd said I would protect the girl. That was the boss lady, only this time she wasn't calling for more vodka in her Cosmo. She was out on one of the balconies, and I hoped, not about to be thrown off it. Sooner or later, I'd have to go out there and see what was happening.
Oh, come on!
It might have been stupidity or drunkenness, or maybe both. But before I knew it, I was back taking insane risks, trying to save fallen women. I imagined the elevator doors opening to a firing squad of muzzles. As far as I could see it, the one thing my plan had going was that no one else would be stupid enough to pull this move. I had to move quick, or Bronco's next charitable donation would be to the worms. Rodrigo was too rich a prize for them to throw away. Sure, I'd have to work hard to get him back, but I knew the bad guys would want the boss alive, almost as much as I did. They weren't far ahead. Once I opened the door, I'd actually have to come up with a plan. The great thing about being famous as well as rich is the bad guys know who to kidnap.
You did good, Max.
You say so. Don't look so good.
Hey, what could be better?
Back home, it was time for some R&R, the only way I knew how. And with that, I guess I was ready for bed. A couple of days later, it was back to work, ferrying the boss's broad and his dipshit of a brother out for the night so they could recover from their brush with mortality. Then again, what did I expect? These were the kind of people who went to nightclubs in helicopters. Fabiana had brought her sister along, presumably so she could show off just how rich and empty her life was. And boy, was she about to learn the meaning of rich and empty. This kind of place made me want to puke. I needed a real drink to deal with the electronic music and the robotic people.
What do you do about life?
Look at me, I'm standing in a nightclub, listening to music I can't stand. I'm 5,000 miles from home, I'm armed and I'm drinking. You don't want to listen to advice from me, amigo. Thank God he had left. A minute more of his drivel and I would have had to put a bullet in him myself. It soon turned out I wasn't the only one. I hadn't seen it coming, but that was no surprise. It's hard to keep your eye on the ball through the bottom of a glass. I just hoped I could get to Fabiana and Giovanna in time. I knew if I didn't get to the girls soon, they'd be leaving this place with either a price on their heads or a tag on their toes. I was lost. The last time I'd been in a nightclub, it was in a different century, and I'd left head first out of the back door with a foot up my ass. The girls were gone, and so was I. The doors had been chained shut. I didn't need my Portuguese for Beginners phrase book to work out what was going on. The guy making the noise was the boss. He was sending them around to cut me off from the other side. And sure enough, a few seconds later, I had some company on the dance floor. There had to be another way out through the VIP lounge. Rich fools love a private exit. Figured this time I'd use the stairs. It was your typical trendy hellhole. A playground for the overpreened and undernourished. Sushi and house music and vodka. A place you don't get through the door unless you're rich, beautiful, or, in this instance, it seemed, a heavily armed psychopath. His name was Claudio. I found out later he was a pretty big shot soccer player for the Galatians. Some nearly superstar just back from Europe. The usual. Scored goals, scored girls. The only box he'd be getting into now was the one he'd be leaving in. Patio upstairs. About the only thing I'd managed to clock in that place was the smoking area. All this unfinished business, and all I could think about was my unfinished scotch. Happy, healthy ex-cop? Give me a break. It looked loud and expensive enough to be Fabiana's. Her fashion sense didn't leave a whole lot of room for imagination, let alone food. The girl sure knew how to draw the eye, and maybe that was the problem. But at least I was heading in the right direction. Whatever the hell they were arguing about, it was time for me to add my 2 cents. They were back to finish the job. I figured it was time to start doing mine. This wasn't the time to be second-guessing myself. I had to hurry or I'd lose them. They were headed for the helicopter pad. I had to get to the roof before Giovanna and Fabiana left on a one-way flight. I knew this was going to be a bad idea, but in the continued absence of any good ones, I decided to go with it. What a view. I guess my time in Sao Paulo wasn't quite the paid holiday in the sun I'd been promised. At least I was getting shot at by a better class of psychopath. These guys weren't messing around. This place was like Baghdad with G-strings. A couple of more seconds and I'd have given some poor street cleaner a crappy start to his day. The odds on Giovanna still being alive were getting worse by the second, and if Fabiana wasn't dead already, I was guessing pretty soon she'd start wishing she was. I was up for one god-awful performance review. Procrastination, one of the many contenders for my epitaph. But if I didn't get to Giovanna soon, the Broncos would be writing hers tomorrow morning. This was a mess. Where the hell was Passos? We were two failed cops failing miserably at being bodyguards. He approached everything with about as little preparation as I did. Maybe that's why we got along.
Hey! No, nothing. Go.
Seems like I wasn't the only guy around here who had taken his eye off the ball.
Are you okay?
My weakness was the drink. Passos was the sister. Things were turning pretty ugly in this town. The boss's girl was gone, and part of me wished I was too. The money was gone, and I was next if I didn't get off that field. The bullets came from long range. I'd been shot more times than I could remember, but this felt different. Maybe fate was sending me a message, trying to tell me my luck was finally about to run out. Or maybe I just severed an artery and was bleeding out like any number of fools who got shot playing with guns. Either way, I was failing fast. At least one of us had a gun now. That raised our chances of survival all the way from nil to slim. So this was it. My easy retirement money. My blood-stained 401k. A chance to drink for free while chaperoning socialites around town and making sure the poor people didn't get too close. The brochure sure didn't mention any of this shit. Passos had done a good job with the bandage, and an even better job with the pills. I couldn't feel my arm anymore. I couldn't feel much of anything, which was the way I liked it. Something tells me we're heading in the right direction. It suddenly hit me that this bloodbath was probably being recorded in HD. The Galatians would be making more than the sports pages tomorrow morning.
Come on,
More trophies and game plans. It had been a very long time since I'd had one of either. Who the hell had tipped these guys off? I didn't know what to think anymore. This town had more smoke and mirrors than a strip club locker room.
the money will be long gone. We gotta stay on the guy with the bag.
I might have written a book on dumb ideas, but Passos sure wasn't afraid to quote from it. I needed something to improve my game.
It's a holdup, bro. Let's get up there.
The smell in this place reminded me of how long it had been since I'd had any food. A drinker eats when he's loaded. A real drunk eats when he's not. It was time to introduce our sniping pal to something more intimate and short range. I'm gonna make a run for the light rig. I had a hole in my second favorite drinking arm, and the only way we were likely to get Fabiana back now was in installments. Whoever our uninvited guests were, I was about done playing soldiers. We'd half destroyed Sao Paulo's most hallowed place of worship. Looking back, it was strange how the cops never showed up. But things had a habit of only making sense to me, looking back long after I'd run out of time to fix them. I'd been sitting at the bar for 3 hours, or about 5 years, depending on how you looked at things. I tried not to look at things. I tried not to think about when it was that my existence became less about the things that make up people's lives and more about the holes that losing those things leave behind. But I wasn't doing a very good job at it. This kid had a well-developed sense of humor for New Jersey. Nice echo. Do gorillas have personalities of their own, or they just agree with everything you say? That's a good line. You practice that in front of the mirror in your underwear? Your father owns this town. Yeah, dear old dad, well-known drug dealer and murderer. You're nothing but a chump.
Max fucking Payne. How you doing, man?
I'm doing about as good as I look. Yeah, well, why don't you drive on off back into the sunset there, Pesos? It's been nice catching up. Admit, I kind of like the guy.
Hey, another round. Max is buying.
He had a great set of stories, but I still wasn't interested in becoming a white knight again.
So,
Girl sure had balls. I had to give her that. I don't know why I did it. Guess I never liked seeing girls get hit. But from that moment, I was dead in that town. The bar held a lot of memories for me. Most of them fuzzy, but memories nonetheless. This looked like goodbye. They'd barred the front door. Of course, we were trapped in here. The only way out was through the back, exactly where they wanted us. I'd gotten into my share of bar fights, but that night made me wish for any one of those. It ain't often you get nostalgic for getting your ass kicked by 6 sailors on shore leave. My first meeting with Passos could have gone any worse was if he turned a gun on me along with everyone else. I should have realized partnerships start as they mean to go on.
I don't want to die here.
I still didn't remember having met Passos before. But then again, I didn't have any friends left from those days, and I didn't remember most nights after 6 p.m.
I ain't waiting to see who else shows up. Come on.
I thought about saying the cops, but this was no time for bad jokes. He could have been setting me up for a fall. Something told me to stay put and trust him. I guess I thought if I was going to be shot in the face in here, it would probably be me pulling the trigger. It was hard seeing Brewer go out like that, but I got to thinking, it was what he was waiting for, a chance to make a difference. At least that's what helps me sleep at night. The apartment made me wish I'd got to know him better. I didn't have a fancy green light on my gun, just a stubborn desire to stop those thugs from having their way. I hadn't wanted to live so bad in years. Gunfire over Hoboken. Felt strange to be at the center of it again. The target, that is. Like an old comedian hearing one last round of applause. Coming into Newark Airport. Get right on the Pulaski, pal. Don't look down. There were wrecks all around, and not the kind you fix up for a weekend project. These were the wrecks you cross the road to avoid.
Look, I know you're enjoying this, but come on.
I was guessing the stairs wouldn't take us to the penthouse, but they were worth a shot. These chumps have been chopping up cars around the corner from my apartment for the last year. The ex-cop and me clocked it months ago, but the deadbeat in me didn't give a shit.
What the fuck?
The longer this went on, the more I wanted to prove the killers wrong. You can't buy your way through life. The guys dead around me were DeMarco's victims as much as I was gonna be. He dangled something irresistible in front of them, and now it was them who paid the ultimate price. So here we were, miles up the Tietze River, looking for what we did not know.
We can put things right, okay?
So that was it, was it? Say the magic word and be absolved of your sins. If only shit were that simple, I'd have done it years ago. Me, I'd been stuck in the past so long I'd forgotten what year it was.
Max.
Here I was, some hopped-up gringo a long way from home, making trouble the only way I knew. As the weather worsened, I caught a glimpse of the rusted shells of previous lives that had been lived out here in this swampy shithole, and I wondered if I would end up the same way, or what would happen to that girl I was supposed to protect. I had no idea what lay ahead, and as much as part of me would rather be anywhere else, I knew this was where I had to be. I felt responsible. I just had to fix the situation, right here.
Parar de reclamar, fazer o trabalho, mano.
I couldn't understand them, but I didn't have to. Cheap hoods are the same from here to Timbuktu. The slab of meat on the boat was clearly the boss. Serrano, they called him. And it seemed that our suspicions were correct. Fabiana was here, somewhere further ahead. I had to find her quickly and quietly if possible. Last thing I wanted was a party with these clowns. I kept moving toward the signs of life, rubbing them out as I went along. I didn't want to think about what would be happening on that video feed now. Just my own imminent cameo. She was on the move. If they'd finally decided to kill her, I wasn't doing anything to persuade them otherwise. I could hear drilling through the wall. It sounded more like boat hull than bone, but I needed to be sure. There she was, right in front of me. The drunk fool in me wanted to make a play. But I had just about enough sense to know that I'd end up with another dead girl in my arms if I did. The coke in the air wasn't doing anything to sharpen my thinking. Was there a switch in that room? I opened the door to the next circle of this low-rent hell. It didn't look like the damp had gotten to them. I hadn't seen Fabiana in a worrying amount of time, but at least I wasn't following a trail of her fingers. There they were. I had the feeling I'd been running one step behind ever since I got to this country. Boy, did I need to hang on. The whole operation was slipping out of our grip. I was an overconfident chump who'd gone into the jungle alone.
I don't need to tell you, they're getting away, genius.
We're back. Nice job. I'm sure they missed us. Crazy shit. Yeah. It's all crazy, pal. Non-stop insanity. Thought I left all this shit behind. Easy gig, you said. What a fool I was to get involved in this madness.
The real security guards had been run off, paid off, or bumped off. That left us. It wasn't a fantastically comforting thought. One of the perks of working for Fabricas Bronco.
Glad to see the security system is keeping the right people out.
Sunday at the office, no one else would need these.
Crotcha Prado, the black badge. Right-wing paramilitary chumps protecting whoever paid the most. I guess that made them more like me than I cared to admit. Were they just looking for another payday, or did their business with the Broncos run deeper?
Something told me these guys didn't have security clearance. The security system was back online. Things might be a little tougher for our fan club from here on in. Seemed like breaching the perimeter had been no more difficult than strolling through the front gates. But hey, who needs a Trojan horse when the alarm is down and your standing army is a dame, a dork, and a drunk? Bronco's office overlooked the atrium. I could check in and make sure he hadn't checked out.
Good back off.
Max, try not to completely destroy the place.
Let's just concentrate on staying alive. Sir!
I'm a self-righteous pain in the ass, but I'm not above embezzling office supplies. Poor girl was dead. Shot through the head by some hero fighting the rich one lonely secretary at a time. I didn't know what the hell I was going to find up there, but I sensed it wasn't going to be a stripper bursting out of a cake. I knew there was another way in upstairs for the helipad, the little luxury runaround that kept the rich looking down on the poor literally as well as metaphorically. Look at me. I've been contracted to protect two people. One was being held in some hole. The other was sitting at his desk with a bullet in his head. And the company that had its logo on my paycheck was melting on top of my head. The kid hadn't made it. Fuck.
I had to make this corpse-looting coward pay. Getting his gun was more than just expediency. If the heat didn't kill me, the fumes would. Rodrigo or not, Fabregas Bronco was falling apart quite literally. He had bullets in his gun. He should have shot himself and ended the pain. This didn't look like a room where Rodrigo closed multi-million-dollar deals. It looked like a fiery hellhole. They'd be serving me up in a churrascaria at this rate. So much for a lazy Sunday afternoon. My next trick would be a high wire act with a fiery pit for a safety net. It was nice that no one was shooting at me for a change, but I'd take shot in the head over a slow roast on a spit any day of the goddamn week. I felt like a fool. I was a sweaty, gray-haired mess. This place was gonna kill me, too. I could see that now. I knew I wasn't thinking straight. I'd been drinking and popping painkillers for years. I had a liver like a French goose and skin like red leather. So I guess I was finally about to go and experience the other side of Sao Paulo firsthand. The bit people try to ignore. The unpleasant memory they try to obliterate with cocktails and helicopters and parties and lines of blow, like rich fools the world over. I was a day off the sauce for the first time in years and knew I was due a hangover sent direct from Mother Nature. I had no idea where the hell I was gonna go, so I decided to head straight for the street party that seemed to be raging. Either that or some other fool had gotten there before me and now was being ritually sacrificed. I've had better ideas, but then I've also had worse ones, like accepting this job in the first place. At least I had found myself a tour guide. The way I see it, there's two types of people. Those who spend their lives trying to build a future, and those who spend their lives trying to rebuild the past. For too long, I've been stuck in between, hidden in the dark. What was I really doing walking in there with my bad haircut and ridiculous shirt? Was I there to make something right? Or was I just using a messed up situation to indulge myself, grasping at some desperate delusion of control? Maybe the two went hand in hand more than I cared to admit. I had stumbled into some kind of street party. This was the kind of reality Americans paid top dollar to see. Slums had become tourist attractions, places where yuppies could gawk at the endless spirit of the poor from the inside of their bulletproof buses. I felt dumb and exposed. I missed the booze. Not that it mattered. Sober or drunk, I was hardly undercover. I stood out in this place like a streetwalker in a monastery. All things considered, I was going to have to look on this as a good outcome. I was deep in gang territory. These kids were raised hating clowns like me. Middle-income ass-kickers who protected the rich by shooting kids like them. Well, they weren't going to help me. And who could blame them? I was a dumb American in a place where dumb Americans were less popular than the clap. If I was going to find my way out of this mess, I was on my own. It looked like there was a bar up ahead. The irony was not lost on me. I figured sobriety was no use to me dead. Another life lesson I didn't want. I hoped this classy-looking establishment would have a phone so I could call Passos. Either that or a gun so I could shoot myself and save these kids the bother. When you're stuck in a foreign country and you don't know the words for reverse charges, and you're in some lonely skin joint in the middle of some poor slum, having just had every last cent robbed from you, and you call yourself a bodyguard, then you know you're a loser.
Hey, Matt, I don't think so.
Look, if you're gonna shoot me, make it quick, I'm a little busy.
Meet you.
Nice to meet you, I think.
Although you... Have you ever seen this guy? Tejano.
Yep, he's a real sweetheart.
Yeah.
Jesus, what a fucking creep. It was Monday afternoon, and I'd already been thrown out of a party, gone to a strip club, and got into a bar fight. This latest midlife crisis was certainly ticking all the boxes. The fireworks display was clearly in my honor, making sure everyone knew to roll out the red carpet for their surprise guest. I was walking into another not-so-welcome party. These hoods didn't look like Commando Sombra. Not that I was gonna get picky. This was clearly their turf, and I'd just shot up their favorite skin joint. This was gonna be a safe medical detox. I was getting nowhere fast. The cold turkey was messing with me, like I was looking through another man's eyes. I needed to focus. I could hear a woman screaming. I thought I'd found Fabiana, but instead I'd stumbled across some testosterone fest. A bunch of young punks with guns killing time the only way they knew how. Nova Esperanza wasn't exactly a dinner and movie kind of place. I recognized the hoods who jumped me earlier. I was trying to decide whether to crash this party or turn back, when my natural grace and finesse made the decision for me. Charming as this neighborhood was, I'd done enough sightseeing. One vice at a time. I'd seen enough. If these drugs didn't have a doctor's name on them, I wasn't interested. I couldn't find any clues in this place, so I decided to do my bit for the drugs trade. It had to be Serrano's pad. Since I was in the neighborhood, I figured he wouldn't mind if I dropped in and thanked him personally for his hospitality.
Excuse me. Max Payne?
Somehow, I didn't think he was about to tell me I'd won the lottery. I knew I shouldn't have gone there, and that Passos might have to pay the price for my sentimentality. Sorry. I started to wonder if my luck was about to run out when I realized it had a long time ago. That's why I was here. The troops had arrived. Either DeMarco had thrown an army at this job, or he'd put a high enough bounty on our heads to attract every contract-buying scumbag on the eastern seaboard.
Calm down.
Some poor bastard, quite literally, on the graveyard shift. Must have been wondering why there were suddenly more bodies above ground than below.
Sniper! Shit!
All I can hope for is that he didn't even hear the shot that killed him. I have to admit, I almost felt bad for the guy.
Dig.
Sure, he had lived a bad life, but I, of all people, knew that living with this grief would be payment enough for any sins. The morgue. How appropriate. The dead bodies didn't need them.
Haven't you figured out I don't speak your fucking language?
Seu gringo de merda! Cala a boca, seu gringo!
That's right, I may be a moron, but here's the thing. I ain't quite as dumb as I seem.
It was time to get out of there. Seemed like someone had decided to carry out some impromptu justice on the street life below. I'd failed Rodrigo and I'd failed Fabiana. And that awful nightclub, the stadium, the docks. I'd been given enough chances to make this right, and again I'd blown it. Perhaps this was my punishment from the fates. Keep reliving the same mistakes for all eternity. My body ached and my eyes burned. I needed something to straighten me out. It was a goddamn war zone. I had to assume Giovanna and Marcelo were out there somewhere. Maybe I still had a chance to get somebody in that family through the day in one piece. The place was swarming with cops. They weren't there for me, as far as I could tell. And I'd blundered my way into enough clusterfucks for one day. If these fools could buy me some time, I might have a chance to get to Marcello and Giovanna before somebody put a bullet in their heads too. It'd stay that way for long. I'd already lost the ransom money, got the hostage killed, and I was only just getting started. This was turning into another fine example of private security work. I'd heard about these raids. Rent-a-thugs in body armor sending a message to the poor that the cops are still in charge. When they hit the favelas, they came in hard and fast. Everyone was fair game, as I was about to find out. The odds of me getting out of there alive, let alone Giovanna and Marcello, were narrowing with every passing second. There was a danger of this starting to get too real. This wasn't such a good spot to enjoy the view. Fucking great. I was still alive, and still not all that happy about it. Why did the easy way out never come? Maybe I thought I didn't deserve it. If I filled my body with enough poison, maybe I'd forget I added another dead girl to my rap sheet. Yes, this was definitely them. Jesus Christ, these bastards made the NYPD look like the Hare Krishnas. I couldn't make much sense of what I was seeing, but I had the feeling it wasn't that strange for anyone else. These charmers weren't there to make a couple of arrests. They were bussing them out by the dozen. But who was I to cast judgment on proper police procedure and justifiable use of force? The alley was a dead end in more ways than one. I needed to find a way out of there. It seemed like as good a place as any to lie low and get my bearings. Problem was, some other fine gentleman had the same idea. I'd gone from out of luck to unarmed and shit out of luck. Another reminder, not that I needed one, that any low point can always go lower, as my new friends were about to find out. It was Sao Paulo's finest, and a busload of lucky winners they'd picked out earlier. I decided I might as well follow them. I was lost, and they were going somewhere, and it was the closest I was going to get to a plan. More. When all you're left with is questions, I guess your only option is to go with your gut. And my gut was telling me that band of merry men would lead me to some answers. Answers I'd soon wish I'd never received. Demon office attacks. Something felt wrong. In fact, everything felt wrong. Anytime those guys decided to join the party, you could be sure it wasn't going to end in a piñata and a slice of cake. After a couple of hours of lying in shit, you learn to appreciate what you've got. And right now, all we had was each other. I was a wreck, and Giovanna, well, I knew what she'd seen no amount of drugs or therapy could erase. That kind of pain follows you around forever. The constant shadow of a wasted life. When half the local police force and a crew of paramilitary psychopaths want to send you upstairs, I reasoned the crowd was as good a place as any. At least when we got shot, maybe some kind soul would take a video and put it on the internet.
Let's go.
Short of riding in on a parade float, we couldn't have made our arrival more obvious. We had to hide someplace out of the open. Themselves. Guess their plan was no more idiotic than mine, and I couldn't really fault them for losing faith in the Broncos security detail.
Get out of the open.
A barely recovering alcoholic and an unarmed pregnant woman. We were hardly a SEAL team. I put our life expectancy at 5 minutes. If we were lucky. Giovanna was a brave girl. She wasn't giving up. And I guess that meant neither could I. I was getting good at this.
Why are they doing this, Max? This is so fucked up!
Our day had started with us hiding in filth, and got progressively worse. My luck was running true to form. Or rather, I was running true to form.
Shit.
This way. This way. Ever driven a bus before?
Of course I haven't.
Ever shot anybody?
No.
Well, it's drive or shoot, sister. And right now, I reckon I'll be better at the shooting. Come on.
Yes.
That's a handy piece of driving. We gotta get out of here. Quick. I was just about to run to the roof when my savior and friend, the man whose unborn child I had just killed for, decided to leave without me.
Just down there, guarding a woman.
I didn't know what to say. I had been so loaded in Panama, I could scarcely remember my own name. I know things had got real heavy. Passos.
Max! Max! Come on!
The first had been easy. Money for banging waitresses at some fancy wedding in the Caribbean. This seemed like another easy gig. It was the middle of the day, and like any self-respecting idiot, I was half cut.
Yeah, Max!
Some ways.
Hey, come on, it's awesome!
Everybody's drunk and tanned, listening to house music. Most of them have plastic surgery, and they're all doing blow. I guess it is kind of like Jersey, huh? God, I gotta quit drinking so much. Give myself serious liver damage. The dead guys looked like soldiers in one of those Central American guerrilla armies. Pirates with a manifesto. Psychos with a dream. That sort of bullshit. I had a way of making any space my own. It certainly wasn't the first time I'd woken up with a hangover, long after a party had turned sour. The fire was sucking oxygen from the room. I didn't care if I got shot the second I got out of there. I needed one more gulp of fresh air before I died. It was like the need for a wake-up whiskey after a 2-day bender. I could breathe again. Now the boat could get back to smelling like suntan oil, stale margaritas, and greed. So this was the famous Panama Canal. We could have gone to the moon while I was passed out and I wouldn't have noticed. There was something firing these guys other than good old-fashioned socialist zeal. What were they looking for? I was on a ghost ship in a ghost canal. The whole thing creeped me the hell out. The pirates wouldn't get everything. Booze, coke, pills. You could get whatever party favor you wanted on this vessel. It was in Marcelo. If I'd known back then that they'd been up to no good while I was fighting my way through a band of violent paramilitaries and a worse hangover, I might not have wanted to get over to them so bad. Hey, Passos! At the time, I hadn't thought too much about this. I hadn't thought too much about anything. Now I remember it, it didn't seem quite so kosher.
What about...
To find. On a boat full of drunks and bullshit artists, I'd been the cabaret act. Shooting whatever came in front of me was easier than coming to terms with that reality. I should have jumped in that goddamn canal myself and swum my way back to New York. I wasn't too excited about the acoustics in this place. A couple of gunshots would sound like I'd walked in here with a goddamn marching band. It was the question I kept on asking myself. How could I have been so blind? I was convinced the Broncos had gotten the wrong man for the job, but maybe De Silva was right. I was the stooge. The bad joke everybody got but me. The Imperial Palace Hotel was a 5-star bona fide shithole. I needed to find out why guests were checking in by the busload and checking out by the bag load. I knew this thing was bigger than me, bigger than the Broncos, but I only had a glimpse of the whole picture, like looking in the mirror and for an instant seeing what everyone else sees, a bad caricature of a better man. De Silva. When you've lived the kind of life I've lived, reality comes at you through a different lens. But nothing could have prepared me for what was on the other side of that door. I had no choice but to push on. I didn't understand everything. and I never would, but I understood enough. Sometimes a complicated problem is best tackled with a simple solution. This was hell on earth. De Silva was no fool. I'd have driven on off into the sunset too if I were him. But I was in too far now. There it was, the soundtrack to my life. And, for a few seconds, came harmony. Time to see what fresh hell awaited me upstairs. For all Serrano owed me, he'd paid enough. For now, I had bigger debts to call in. Even I could guess what demolissao meant. That building was condemned in more ways than one. I'd seen some dark shit in my time, but this was something else. These vermin had gone into a place where life was cheap and found a way to get rich off it. I just wanted to finish this and get far away from here. But then, true to form, more of the rats came out of their holes. At least my visitors had been kind enough to leave the gate open. You can't unsee something, but you can dull the effect. Any time I bought had been going real cheap. If I was going to plant the rest of those explosives, I had to do it now. I was at the top of this house of cards. Now was the time to play my ace. That was the last of the explosives. I just hoped it was enough to bring down the building. And all the evil in it. De Silva had promised me a 10 o'clock showcase. I had to make sure I was on stage and ready for my close-up. I knew nothing resembling good times lay beyond that gate, but I was gonna have to face the music sooner or later. I guess our little stunt helped some other civic-minded people raise valid concerns about community relations. Their faces said it all. I was on their side, but how could they know that? If they came through that door, I'd be leaving as a human shield that would never leave at all. Luckily for me, for once the police arrived just in time. The last few prisoners were trapped in here. More presently, seemed I was too. About the only friend I had left in that town. Well, wasn't this nice? The perfect end to a perfect trip. If someone had told me 6 months ago this was where my life was headed, I'd have ordered a double of whatever they were drinking, drunk it, then blown my head off. Another dark, rainy night, another police station, another futile crusade for amends. Time moves forward, and nothing changes. Figured I'd bag those up for evidence. Police food, the same crap the world over. But I could reminisce about the old days later. For now, there was more pressing matters to deal with. Luckily, I wasn't the only cop with a pill problem. Giving them a run for their money. That's what happens when you hand some roided-up halfwit a commando uniform with special on the front and let him ride around his hometown in a tank playing soldiers. Sooner or later, someone's gonna decide he's not so special. There were a bunch more in the elevator, tooled up like they were about to roll into Fallujah. And of course, they were headed my way. If there was one thing I learned since being in Sao Paulo, it was that me and the local elevators were not a good mix. Whatever depressing fate lay on the other side of those doors, there was no point in putting it off any longer. I'd killed more cops than cholesterol, and still no sign of Becker. It It wasn't the first time it dawned on me I should probably have gone over the plan in more detail, but it was too late for that now. I still didn't know how I'd gone from drinking myself numb in New Jersey to looting corpses in Brazil. But this was where I was, 5,000 miles from a home I couldn't go back to, on another suicide mission to clean up a mess that wasn't even mine. I'd spent my career dozing off in the briefing room. Now wasn't the time. It was starting to feel as if I'd never leave that place. Like one of those nightmares where you keep running and running, only to discover you're chasing yourself. My eyes and throat burned, but at least I could breathe. I was trying to work out what direction I was headed in when I discovered some more Brazilian architecture not designed for the American physique. Another pile of bodies and still nothing to show for it. It felt like I was detaching, that maybe this was revenge for something else, something buried deep in the past. Everyone who'd meant anything was gone. Like so many times before, I'd found myself alone, locked on a course of destruction. It was at my worst when I was at my best. They had their body armor, I had mine. It felt like I was going around in circles, getting further away from the truth. I had to find my way out of there. Becker and Bachmeyer had taken their pound of flesh and sold it on the black market. Now I was coming for mine.
They had barred the door. My only hope was to chase them down. I knew they'd be leaving town, and my guess is they would try to fly out of here. Rich people love to fly away.
God damn it!
Yep. So, of course, I knew they were looking for me. But the airport was about the only place a fat gringo might blend in. Well, there or a sex club. My delusions of disguise lasted around 2 seconds. They were out in force. And they were out for me. But then, I was out for them, too. Every last one of those bastards. It felt like my vacation was coming to an end. Only I wasn't heading home with a sunburn, a bag full of duty-free, and a dose of VD. I was making a bet that would put me in handcuffs or a body bag. These were Becker's guys. Him and Victor had a private airport to go with their private army and their private jet. I always liked to travel on medication. I had to get to where the action was. Judgment with a smile. You can't beat it. Maybe they were in the next terminal. I'd keep looking until Victor sent me a postcard from Miami. It worked. The trams were running again. Maybe they'd take me to my gate. Maybe they'd bring more guys wanting to whack me. Maybe both. And we were off. I felt like I might be able to recharge for a second. At least until we pulled into the station and met more murderous assholes. Didn't work out like that. Of course, there'd be a tram full of goons trying to derail me. It was perfect. Everyone wanted a ticket for the Max Payne Express. I felt like I'd missed out on a joke, and it was a real good one. It had taken me right into the heart of it. Becker's gimps were everywhere, so he and Bronco must be close. The smart move would have been sticking with De Silva and going straight to the hangar, but when was I ever about smart moves? I'm a dumb move guy. Hey Max, we'll drive onto the runway. No thanks, let me walk in the main entrance. I'll put a big shit-eating grin on my face and let these assholes take turns trying to kill me. That's my style, and it's too late in the day to hope for change. Boy, were they throwing numbers at this problem. But then, I'd chosen to be here. I wanted this. Was it redemption? Not really. It was pathetic desperation, and not much else. Running a police force, he was running an army. These guys were better trained and better equipped than anyone I'd seen out here, and I'd seen some mean sons of bitches. The mission was screaming suicide, but I didn't give a damn. At least I'd die being a pain in the ass. There the bastards were, sneaking off in their rich kid's toy.
I ain't got nowhere else to go, Becker! Mr. Payne!
I'm normally a behind-the-desk kind of cop.
Only I've been one of them, too. Your career's coming down with that plane. Let's get it over with.
You'll walk with a limp!